working on this project that we're going to be going through. So get this out of the way. Throughout the month, we're going to be covering a few different topics. One of them is more creative. We're going to cover some design stuff, some more creative stuff, and then also some technical skills. So we're going to be designing some type of product at the end of this, right? But we need to be able to actually implement that and make it successful. Otherwise, it's just an idea that's going to fall flat on the table. So we need to know those technical skills and how we're going to do so inside of Unity. So over here on the left, or over here on the right, I just have a short little overview of the things we're going to be covering today. It's a lot to go over, so the first few weeks of this class are going to be pretty intensive in content and material, and then the rest of that you're going to be working on your project. So before we get started, a little bit about myself. Like I said, my name is Andrew O'Connor. I was actually a full sail graduate from the game art program. So 7 years ago, I was in those same seats, and now it's a little crazy to be on the other side of it. But I got through the degree, and I was offered an internship through one of my instructors, and turns out I was the only one that applied for it. That turned into a job. That turned, got to meet some awesome people, work on a few projects, a few contracts, ship a few games, and now I'm at this point where we're working together to help you guys out and give some knowledge back. So I really enjoy where I'm at, and definitely just take every opportunity you get. That's a small little piece of advice I'll give for you guys is just take any opportunity you get to network, work on a project, especially now when you're a student and you have the time to do so and you have the opportunities. Really just get to know everyone. Other degrees, it's always going to be a good thing. So a little bit about this class. We're going to be ending up with a map. So I just want to preface on that. So at the end of this class, we're going to come out with a 2D map that we're going to in later months flesh out and design inside of Unity, inside 3D. So this is all going to start as individual. Right now you guys are all working as individuals on your own work, but this will end up as a team project. So I'm sure you guys know each other well already. Get to know each other even more and continue to work as a team, and you'll really be able to push your project even further when you get to that team-based sense. So what we're starting with, if you haven't looked at FSO already, the assignments are numbered, starting with professional as 0, and then the first few assignments, 1, 2, 3, all the way down to number 10. That's designed in a way so you guys understand the flow they can go in, and everything's open right from the beginning. Bless you. So if you want to, get a head start and start cranking out assignments and getting through some of the documentation stuff and getting to the design elements, you're more than welcome to. The whole class is open right from the beginning, so we really want you to work at your own pace. So we're going to be starting with some, just brainstorming, coming up with some concepts, coming up with some ideas, and then we're going to be moving into reducing those down, getting a structured level design document. From there, we're going to go into a flow chart where we can break down our mechanics, how they're going to flow from area to area on our map, and then, or in our level. And then finally is going to be the map, which is just a visual representation of how these mechanics are going to be strung together and the flow and the actual visual spacing of all of this. So it's going to be an awesome process to see it from just a whole bunch of ideas on paper to refine, to refine, to refine. And now you have this individual product, and then a few months from now, you're going to have a whole team level. So it's going to be a really awesome experience, and excited to see how this goes. So just a few general notes up there. Skype and FSO message are usually the best ways to get a hold of me, as well as email. Try to do your best to avoid putting comments in the actual assignments in FSO. It's tough for me to see those. But yeah, I'll be available pretty much all the time on Skype and through email, so definitely don't be afraid to get a hold of me. As well as you'll see my office hours are posted in the announcements. All right, so that's pretty much just a general sense of the class. I know that's a little bit a lot, but I'd like to give you just an overview so you see that every single assignment we're working on has a purpose, and it's not just busy work. One thing is going to build upon and lead to the next. So any questions all about that? Anything unclear before we get into some nitty-gritty perforce stuff? No? Alrighty. So a few of you guys said that you're having some problems getting boot camp on your machine, right?
That's just me.
Just you? Everyone else has boot camp on their machine?
Well, yeah.
Or everyone has Windows?
They have Windows currently. We were the ones with problems.
Okay. Alright,
But
and
I just don't have it right now.
gotcha. And of you guys, do you guys have Perforce installed already?
I believe so,
Yeah, you should.
Awesome.
Design tools,
Yeah, from Design Tools, exactly. So now, in Design Tools, you were just working on your own machine in a local server, but now we're actually on a shared server, which you'll see here. This is where we're going to be submitting all our work. Our assignments are going to be submitted through here, as well as when you're working on your project, you can submit your work up to here to, back up your work and save it. So who is familiar with Perforce already? Who has an understanding of what it's about, how it works? Who's used it outside of FullSet? No? You guys are new to it when you come down here? Okay, awesome. So we're really gonna get into it this month, so you really have a good understanding of it. Design Tools, it was just introduced to you guys, so you guys aren't afraid of it. You know what it looks like. You're not intimidated by the interface, even though 6 years later, sometimes I'm still intimidated by the interface. It's not the most friendly tool, but it's very, very powerful. So it's really good that you get a good sense of what's going on here. All right, so these are just a few of the topics that I want to go over. I just wanted to kind of stand up rather than sitting behind my computer the whole time. So the depot versus the workspace. Who can tell me what is a depot and what is a workspace? Anyone have a guess? No?
Workspace, does that mean like you checked it out and you're working on it?
It's close. So here you'll see at the top we have a depot tab and a workspace tab. So the depot, that is what's shared among everybody. Everybody gets files from the depot. That's just one place, one space that all those files are in. Your workspace, that is local to your own machine. So all the workspace is just a mirror of what you see on the depot. So you can get files from the depot and now they're transferred onto your workspace. So the biggest thing to remember is it's just a copy, it's just a folder structure somewhere on your machine that's copying everything from here. So I can show you. So here I have just a project right here, right? And I'm in my depot tab. If I just right click on this and I'll go to the bottom here, can you see that? Yep. And now I do show in Explorer. This is going to show me where that file is located. And you'll notice it's just a folder that has this path. So this workspace has just been set up in a certain location, and now I'm just getting the files from the depot. Does that make sense for everyone? All right, and now also I have this link. I'll send this. This is a part of your first assignment, but this is a really, really good manual that you don't have to read through it. Definitely not important by any means, but there is some information in here that you will see again. Hint, hint. So a really good one would be the icons. Definitely just being familiar with the different icons is going to help you really understand what they mean right off the bat. So some really common ones you'll see. This white file here, that's just a file that's in the workspace. It's on your machine, but you haven't yet submitted it to the depot, right? Here, this one right here, it's represented by a red plus. That's a file that you have marked for add, that you're going to add to the depot, right? So this is just really, really helpful reference that gets you set up and gets you moving in the right direction. So real quick, I can walk you through a little bit of what I'm talking about and how you would add files to the server. You may be familiar with this already, but you were doing it in a more local space. So let's go ahead and pretend like I'm submitting some work for the class. All right, so you guys see up here, you'll see IND229, that's the class we're in, 1602, that's our month, and then section 0, that is, you guys are section 0 because you're on campus, and then 1 through 5 are all our online sections. So inside of here, we have a compiled folder and our working folder, right? So our working folder, this is where we're going to be submitting our own project, our own work. So I'm not going to be grading any of that, but that's where you want to be getting practice, adding your files. You're going to be getting a Unity project on here. That's where you're going to be submitting changes to your Unity project as well. So you'll notice inside here, and this is the first assignment, is just to create a folder and then with some contact info in there, right? So I had gone ahead and done that already just as an example. And now inside of Notepad, I open it up and there is there is my reference contact info if you'd like it. And this is what you'll be doing in the very first assignment once you get set up with Perforce. All right. So if we want to go ahead and add a file to this working folder, one way we could go about doing it is show in Explorer. All right, and now I'm going to open up my working folder. And now just inside my example, I'm just going to go ahead and add another text document. I'm going to call it test. All right, and then I'm just going to open it up and write test. All right, and now I'm going to save it. Okay, so now I've added a file to this folder, but we don't see it yet here, right? Does anyone know why it's not up there yet? Exactly, right? We haven't submitted to the depot. But if I go over to the workspace, I open up the same folder. Now you're going to see that same file I just submitted. Now you'll notice the icon next to it. That small little sheet of looks like just white paper. That's just a good representation to show that you have it on your machine, but it's not yet submitted. So through the process of submitting this, the first thing you would do, there's a bunch of different ways to do this. In your instructions, you'll notice it'll tell you to, let me just change this. Actually, this brings me to a good point. I'll come back to this actually. All right, so one way you can do this that was mentioned in the assignment was to just drag your file into this change list. That'll just add it. What I like to do personally, I like to just right-click and mark for add. I learned as a student and through a few different projects, anytime I drag and drop something, if it gets dropped in the wrong spot, sometimes it's tough to know exactly where it went, especially if you're just dragging files, moving it into a folder. Sometimes they can get lost. So I just like to have a little bit more control for that. All right, so now I've marked this for add. So now you'll notice that the symbol changes, and now it's a small little plus next to it. All right? Oh, and it would probably help. All right. So now once I've added it to the server, or I've marked it for add, it still isn't showing up here, right? It's not showing up in the depot. But you'll notice in my change list over here, now I have a file in it, right? So now I've marked it for add. That's the first step. It's not yet on the server. Now you have to right-click and submit. Right? And now here is where you get to write a small little description. And definitely take this seriously. It's really, really important that your change lists are clear and concise, especially when you get out in the industry. You don't just want to write like, made a change or fixed a bug. You really want to have it clear and concise so other people can just read the change list and see exactly what you're doing. Also, if anything ever breaks, you're able to, with Perforce, you're able to revert and go back to a recent change. So you want to have it clearly listed out what it is that you're doing. But for this example, I'm just going to write adding a test file, and I'm going to submit it. All right. And there it is. It's up on the server. And it's right now, it says 3 of 3. Don't get thrown off by that. That's just because I've had a file on there before that was called test. If I named it something else, it would be 1 of 1. But you'll also notice there for my contact info, it's 1 of 1. So now, does anyone know what I would try and go about to do if I wanted to make a change to any one of those?
You gotta check it out.
Perfect. Yep. First thing you want to do is you want to check it out. All right. So I'm just going to come over here. I'm going to check out my. All right. Now I can just open it up. I'm just going to write making a change. All right. You guys trying to get Perforce set up?
He was trying to open it.
You trying to open it?
Yeah.
Yeah, so everyone should have a user now, which should just be the first portion of your full sale email. And then your password is password. So if you want to just jump in and follow along, you're definitely more than welcome to. But then in the lab today, we're going to make sure everyone's got Perforce up and running and starting that playground assignment. All right, so yeah, the first thing you would do would be to check out a file, work on it, and now you want to submit it back, right? But that's not the only way to submit files through Perforce. There's what's called reconcile offline work, which is point C here. So we really want to be able to be in control of what we're submitting and when we're submitting it, right? So it's always really smart to be checking out files, working on them and submitting them. That's the standard workflow you want to be in. So don't ever stray away from that. But when we work with Unity, if you haven't noticed already, and you may not have, is every single file in Unity has a metadata file attached to it. And sometimes those will change, like if you're working on a script or you're working on your scene, sometimes it's going to change, other times it may not. So it really becomes very tedious to micromanage all of those changes and making sure you're checking out the scene and the metadata file. So what reconciling offline work actually does is it's going to, no matter where you do it from, so say you do it from a certain folder in your project, it's going to compare everything you have on your machine to what's on the depot, right? It's going to compare the two, and then anything that's different on your workspace, it's going to add that to a change list. So right, so if you've made a change to a file, it's going to check out that file and put it in a change list. If you've added any new files, it's going to mark those for add. If you've deleted anything, it's going to mark it for delete. So it's really cutting a big corner. So you have to be conscious of what you're doing, because otherwise you could end up nuking all of your work, right? Because if you go ahead and just do a bunch of changes, work on some stuff without checking anything out, and accidentally get latest revision, it's going to take what's on the depot and just copy it to what's on your machine. So now you just wiped out everything you've done. Does that make sense? Why that would happen? All right, I really want to make sure everyone's clear on that, because it can be a bad thing. You know, you could lose a lot of work if you don't know what you're doing. So it's really important you understand exactly what reconciling offline work does. If you understand what it's doing, it makes it more powerful and you know how to actually use it. So let me just give you a small example of that. Let me go ahead and open up. I have a little test project down here. And this is pretty much exactly what you guys are going to be starting with this month, is what I'm about to show you guys. Alright, so here we are. You guys can see that? Alright, so here we are in Unity. This is going to be pretty similar to what you guys will be working on. But now I'm working in Unity, right? And I want to do a few things. So in my scene, say I want to create a cube, move them over here. Say I want to duplicate them. Say I, make this object into a prefab, and I want to add a script, right? And all right. So I'm just working in Unity. I'm just working on my project, and there's a lot of things I'm working on at the same time, right? So I don't want to add one thing, go back to Perforce, mark it for add, hit submit. It's just going to take a lot more time. Now what we can do is now we're able to come back into Perforce, and so one thing you can notice too is all the changes I made were into that scenes folder, right? Let me go back to Unity. So I added this script in here, and I dropped this prefab into here, and I also added something in the scene, right? Those are the three things I did. So now I can come back to Perforce, right-click on my scene folder, and reconcile offline work. All right, and this is going to scan for a second. This window popped up here. So this looks like there's a few other things that I had been working on that I hadn't yet submitted. But yeah, you'll notice that we have the cubes prefab that I made. Let's see, what else did we? The example script, as well as we should have a change to the scene. Oh, did I save my scene? Probably not. So let me cancel that, go back to Unity, and make sure let's just go ahead and save the project, save the scene. Come back to Perforce, let's try it again. Yep, and then am I in the rigid bodies test? I'm in the danger zone scene. Oh, there it is, up top. So that's a good point. So these are all new files, right? These are all things that I've added that aren't yet there. But you'll notice up top there, those are things that are already in the project but have been modified. Anything that would be deleted would be down here. So this is really, really powerful, right? You can notice how it's saving you a lot of time by just working in Unity after a half hour or so. That's what I recommend, is 20 minutes every half hour. Come back to Perforce, reconcile offline work, and now you can just, when I hit reconcile now, it's going to put all this in a changeless for me. All right, so I hit reconcile. Now you'll notice in my changeless I have all these files, and now I can submit it like I want to, right? So you can see the difference in the workflows, right? How one is very, very tedious but safe, but this one is a little bit dangerous, but at the same time much safer or much more efficient if you know what you're doing. Does anybody know what I would want to do if I don't want to submit these files? So say I mark some files for add, I don't want them in the server anymore, or I don't want them in this change list, or maybe I accidentally deleted someone's work, or I marked someone's work for delete, and I don't want to do that. How would I go about getting out of that? Does anyone have a guess? All right, good start. I like your thought process. All right, right click on it, and now what options do we have? What would you do from here?
That's all I have.
All right, but now we have some options, right? So let's just work it out. So we don't want to submit it, right? Because that's not going to get us anywhere.
I'm with Anthony on revert files.
Exactly, perfect.
Good job.
You guys are on point. So revert files, that's going to just go through and revert pretty much everything in the change list. If you want to go through and do revert unchanged files, that'll also work. It'll just take anything out that's not been changed. But usually you just want to go ahead and revert to clear everything out. There we go. And now my change list is empty again. All right, so that explains reconciling offline work and also just a touch of reverting files. You may get into a sticky situation sometimes where you may notice you may have multiple change lists. That's a bad thing. You want to definitely stay away from that. So always make sure you have your under your pending change list here. At first it may look like this, a big long list of things that are confusing and don't really make sense. So here in your filter, you can do user and then this little drop-down arrow. You do is current user and then do workspace, is current workspace. Right? And you'll always have a default change list. That's not going anywhere. And if you guys have your own machine, like say at home or you have a desktop you're working on, you guys can have a workspace on each machine. There's no need to just think you only have one workspace, right? You have one workspace on your machine, but every single local machine has its own workspace. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Cool. All right, so then on to, I think I want to talk a little bit about get latest revision versus get revision. Yeah, right here. All right, so more often than not, you're going to be getting get latest revision. So if you right click on, say, you're going to come into the class and, you guys are going to want to get this section 0 folder. You want to go ahead, right click on this, get latest revision. But there you're going to see, if you see down here at the bottom, it says no files updated. And that's because I already have all those files on my machine. For you guys, it's going to go through the process, get them all, and then it's going to tell you those files have been updated. And that's get latest revision. But the power of get revision gives you a lot more options. So if I come over to the section 0 folder and I do get revision, this pop-up box is going to show up. And now we have a few different options here. So you'll notice here I can get latest revision, which is just like the other option, but I also have this other option here to specify revision using, and now I can do it based on a revision number, on a changeless number, a date and time. So you have a lot more options here. The label and the workspace I don't really use that often, but date and time I use the most. So you're like, okay, on Wednesday at 6 o'clock, I know my project was working. I don't know what's broken now, but at 6 o'clock it was working. So you can just do date and time, set it to the time and date you want. And then this is the option you're going to want to use down here is force operation. So what this is doing is right in the quotes, or in the parentheses there, it says replace file even if you already have it. Right? So it's going to just tell Perforce, hey, you think I have these files? Well, get them for me anyways, because I want to make sure I have exactly what's on the server. Sometimes if you're working in your Unity project and something's broken, or you're working on a team and someone's workspace is just out of sync, it's not lining up with what's on the server, the best thing to do is so say I'm going to do it with the section 0 folder. So I'm going to show and explore. Say something's broken in here. I broke something on my machine. So I'm going to go ahead and just delete this folder. Alright, so I just deleted it. It's not on my workspace anymore. It's not on my computer. Now I come to here and I'm just going to try a test. Let's see what happens. If I get latest revision, there, you'll see no files updated, right? But you saw I just deleted it. I don't have it anymore. But now if I do get revision and click force operation, you'll see right there, it went so quick because they're so small. Usually a progress bar will come up, but it's 11 files were updated and 1 were removed. So you'll notice there that that's doing exactly what I told it to do with get revision, but it's just telling Perforce, hey, just brute force it and make sure I have all those files. So does that see why you would want to have that power and to get revision compared to get latest? Any questions about that or anything else we've gone over?
Can that overwrite work?
What?
Can that overwrite your work?
Yeah, that's the same. Yeah, that's the same exact thing. So you don't want to get revision or get latest revision before you reconcile offline work, right? So if that's the workflow you're going to go with, you're going to want to make some changes, and this is definitely a good thing to remember or write down or definitely keep note of. Make some changes on your project, come back to Perforce, reconcile offline work from wherever it was. So you notice when I did my example, I reconciled my work from the scenes folder because I only made changes in there. If you're making changes to multiple folders, you can do it from the higher up. But yeah, so you'll work on files in Unity, reconcile offline work, submit your change list, and then you would get the latest revision. So if you're working with another individual or working with a team, you would submit your work, and then you would get the files from the server. My phone talking to me. It randomly turns on and starts trying to catch what I'm saying and say it back to me. So yeah, definitely be careful with reconciling offline work. And one thing I always recommend, especially to new users, before you even try to submit work, like if you've been working on stuff for a few hours or an hour or so, and you want to submit it, one thing I would do is just make a copy of this. So just copy it and then just put it somewhere safe. Just paste it on your desktop. That way you have a backup.
Or a thumb drive.
Yeah, thumb drive. Just have a backup in case, for whatever reason, you accidentally get latest revisions. Sometimes you just get into this habit, and then before you know it, all your work's gone. So it's just a good habit to get into before you really have a good understanding, and that's just going to protect yourselves, right? Because I don't want, I don't want you guys to fail. I definitely want to see everyone succeed. And losing work is such a terrible way to have to take a class again or have to work on a project all over again. So just be smart with how you're working, and you can avoid things like that. All right, so one final thing about Unity projects. Let's see. Yeah, just one final thing about the actual Unity stuff, and then we can talk about the actual class. So everyone know and familiar with library files in Unity? You guys know that those actually exist? No? That's okay. So if I go ahead and look at my if I look at my project here, you'll notice that if I look at it on the server, I just have, let's see if I can do this. So if you look at it on the server down here, I just have an assets folder and a project settings. That's it. So when you build a Unity project, it's going to look something more like this that you'll see in the Finder window. And even in the workspace, I can show you that the workspace matches exactly over here. Is you're going to have this library folder and a temp folder, right? And also some of these other C# plugins, and you'll also have some .sln files, other things you don't want on the server. We only want to be submitting the assets and the project settings, because what will happen is every single computer, every single machine, it builds its own library folder. Bless you. So it's going to have those unique to your machine. So if you go ahead and submit that library folder, and someone else tries to open up that project, they're just not going to be able to open Unity. Bless you. And you'll notice as well, so this is also a good fix if you guys ever get yourself into a situation. Let me close Unity. All right. So if I go ahead and say Unity's just not launching, it's just not opening. Another good fix besides forcing the revision off Perforce, you go ahead and delete your library folder. All right. Not a big deal. Nothing's breaking down. Our project's still here. And now what's going to happen is I'm going to leave this off to the side so you can see. When I go ahead and open up a scene from my project, and now watch over here in the Finder, you're going to notice that my Unity is rebuilding the project, and now that library folder's back again. So if you delete the library folder or the temp folder, Unity's just going to rebuild it anyway. So sometimes things get broken or corrupt in there, but you never want to submit those to the server. Anyone have any idea what would you do if you accidentally submit them to the server? Yep, exactly. So you just mark them for delete and then submit, right? If you mark them for add but don't want to do it, you would just revert the files, right, to get them out of the change list. So don't ever panic. Don't ever think that something's melting down. If you've got your work on the server, it's going to be there. So that's the biggest hurdle, is making sure that you're submitting your work consistently, and then you'll be good to go. All right, I think that pretty much covers everything I wanted to talk about. Yep. So also, so we mentioned a little bit about the pending change list here and how to filter. Good idea to have this filter up just so you can only see your own work. Also here in the history, right? So this is also going to be super helpful for you guys, because you can select different folders and see who's changed it, when it was changed, and really gives you a good sense of, just think about this in working in a team setting. It tells you who's submitting what, who's working on what, really make sure every single thing is very well detailed. And also this gives me a good sense of who's checking in their work and who's not. So I can use this as well to see, okay, one person's waiting until Sunday to actually submit to Perforce. We want to make sure we're submitting our work every few hours. So just another good helpful tool there. So I know that's a lot to take in. This is a huge piece of software, but does anyone have any just general questions at all about anything we covered, or even just the layout or the icon, anything they saw that they weren't really sure what that meant or what you wanted to do with it? No? Yeah, I understand. I mean, you definitely got to get your hands dirty and get into the software before anything comes up. But you guys seem to have a good understanding so far. So make sure you just ask me if you have anything you wanted to talk about. All right, and then just so as far as the actual class goes, you're not going to see as much as what I'm seeing here. You're only going to see this IND folder and then 1602, and then you're going to see section 0 for you guys. All the online students, you'll see your own section. And then you'll also see this IND content folder. So for the first week, all of the assignments on FSO they will be instructions in there. It'll tell you what you need to do. But after week 1, all of your actual assignments, you're going to just get them from Perforce. What? Yeah, yeah. So you can just go ahead once you get logged in and just get latest revision of the whole content folder. And then there you're going to have your entryway, which is one of the assignments, the template, which you get started with, the rigid bodies is another one, and then here's a few other PDFs for the additional assignments. So we really want to be pushing Perforce this month. I want to make sure you guys have a good understanding of how to work around it and really just how to just add files and make changes. If you have that good understanding and how to do a little bit of troubleshooting, you're going to be much more successful in the next upcoming months. How you connect to the server? Here's the address is right up top here. It should also be a part of the announcement if it wasn't. No? Oh yeah, and it may be in the actual setup document then for Perforce. But yeah, it's you guys. Does anyone have Perforce open right now? Like the launch one? You do? Yeah. So if you just do gdnresource.fullsail.edu:1337. It's very. Oh, it's. Okay, so you're on a different server, so go ahead and close that down and reopen it. So that you can log on. Yes, right here. So yeah, you would do gdnresource.fullsail.edu. And then 1337. And then your user is your email, and then you may want to change your workspace to something other than your local one that you have the license on. So I know in our setup we want you to be on the C drive, right? C drive and then your name. So if you go ahead and hit new to the P folder again. T. No.
I've got it.
Yeah.
What's going on?
He hits new workspace and it's just not responding. And what internet connection are you on?
That one.
What's that? I do know I've had some problems.
Anybody else set up?
Does OpenCom not do that?
No.
Okay.
Are you able to connect to the Full Sail guest network? No, Teams. Is it? Alright, so you're on the Full Sail network. Let me give it a shot and see if I can connect to the network. I had this problem before with
I had to disconnect and reconnect earlier.
Did you?
Yeah, internet was good.
Try giving that a shot too, disconnecting it, reconnecting.
But
But I do know I've had some problems with some master's students trying to get on campus.
yeah, without the whatever. And then here. No. Yeah, his just doesn't do anything.
Well, don't hit it too many times, I'll watch you get there first, so.
Oh, I hit so many times, I left myself. That sounds fun.
Yep.
Hit middle once and then right 2 minutes. Will tell you to make a search for something.
Oh. It's in the network.
Yeah, it could just be the network.
What network are they on?
Full Sail?
I'm on staff.
Yeah, me too.
Okay.
How do we get on that one?
It's a long process.
Oh.
First you have to graduate. Run the industry. Good job.
Alright, we can definitely take a look at that in the lab, why that's happening. Because we, definitely got to make sure that's not causing everyone problems when they're on campus.
Well, I'm glad we discovered this now.
Yeah, I had a feeling this may be an issue. We've had, like, I know if you're plugged into the wired connection, it's just not letting you on for whatever reason. Maybe it's just the student. Like they have all the IP addresses for the students, just not able to get on. But I had helped a few master students a few months ago get set up on the server, and for the same issue, just could not sign in. And then I was like, let's try just a different network, and it worked just fine. So hopefully we can get that resolved, and maybe talk to IMT. I can try and talk to IMT and see what's going on, why they aren't letting us on. But we can definitely take a look in why that's the way it is in the lab. Yeah, so that's really the nuts and bolts, though, of what we're going to be using Perforce for.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
So one of the big things with Perforce that I think people miss, and I'd like to ask you guys, is why do we use this? Why do we use Perforce?
It's a good question.
Not Dropbox. And if we could use Dropbox, we could use Google Drive. Those are simple, they're free. Why would we bother with this behemoth?
Well, everybody can edit it at once whenever it's Dropbox or whatever, and it could cause issues if people are changing things, and then Dropbox will sync it while somebody else is already working on it at the same time, right? This one you have to check out. You can see who's checked it out, working on it. It has to be checked back in before somebody else can, right?
Yes.
Mhm.
So it stops something like that.
Version control too on that with
Yeah. Exactly. You
Yeah,
don't
and
get
if you
that out of
mess it up, you
Dropbox.
can get your old versions back.
Exactly.
Anything else? There's a
Without
few more
like
reasons.
straight up backup.
Yeah, those are all correct. There's a few more
Sale
reasons.
for buys.
Cool.
One of the big ones is this is the industry standard. So any studio you go to work at that's a studio over, say, 5 people, they're going to have some form of version control.
Yeah.
Perforce is the most common. There's also Git and
Yep.
Mercurial and Bitbucket and a few others. But if you understand Perforce, it's the oldest, most robust, most sophisticated. If you understand Perforce, you can pick up any of those.
Yeah, and it's just like learning a game engine, right? Like as you said, once you guys learn Unity, you'll be able to apply that knowledge into Unreal or any other game engine. And also Perforce now, I'm pretty sure it's free if you want to have a server for up to 20 users. It's free. So if small studios or small teams of people want to make a game or work on a project, they're able to do so now. So I'm expecting Perforce to be even more of an industry standard now that it's targeting free small studios. So if we just take a look at the project template.
Exactly.
Just open this up.
Sorry about that. Before we go, I just decided something.
So it'd be weird simulator to make Amber Ridge better than Firefox.
Yeah. We'll call it Four Guys.
So whenever Perforce decides to play well with you, or whenever the internet decides to play well with you, you're going to go ahead and download this inside of the content folder. One of the assets we have for you is a project template, and this is a Unity project. So a part of the playground assignment, if you haven't looked at it already, is just taking this project, making a copy of it. So I would just come over here, show and explore. I would make a copy of this template, and now I would go ahead and put it inside this working folder. Right? So for you guys, you would just rename it and put it inside here, and this is where your Unity project is going to be located. Right? So let me just go ahead and just give you a little demo of what we've got, and give you a little taste, get you hopefully really excited and amped up. So this is what we've got going on. We've got a nice little 3D character. I can press the shift button, go over the shoulder, and here's some of these collectibles that I can pick up here. And I also have this, we like to call it the Gravnull. So it's just, you'll see that sphere, when I click on my mouse, you'll see that sphere that comes up. I'm able to grab physics objects, right, and I can pick them and throw them around. So it gives me a lot of interaction for the player. So this is what we're going to be working with. This is what we're going to start to design around. You'll also see that there is a creative vision. That's one of the first assignments, and it's just about reading through the creative vision, getting a good sense of what the game is that we're working on. The game is called Scraps, and just really get a good sense. And now this is your opportunity to create for this game. So before this class, you may not have had too many just openly creative classes, right? It's more of get to understanding how to design, what design is, taking a few different methods and applying them, working on a project in an earlier portfolio class. But now this is really our opportunity to design whatever you guys feel you can create, right? So don't design anything that you don't know how to implement. This is where your own skills are going to come into be a factor. So in here we have a lot of different material, or a lot of different scripts and other assets readily available for you, as well as on the Perforce server, which you guys have access to. You will see Scraps assets. This other folder you'll have access to. This is just loaded with all kinds of different assets and Unity packages that we have gathered throughout the last few years from online sources. Just a big mishmash of different assets we found that we feel fits with what we are envisioning for the game Scraps. So you can feel free to peruse through here and take a look at it. We also have a exe up here. Is that playing for you guys? Nope. Get on the other monitor. But this exe here is just a short little demo of all of the assets we have for you. There we go. So you can just quickly, and this is made with an older version of the Gravnull, but you can just run through here and see all the assets we have. Give you just a better sense. The reason we provide this for you is we don't want you spending time going out on the internet or making your own assets. If you'd like to and you feel confident enough to do so, go for it. But really, that's not what we're focusing on for this. We really want to focus on the actual design and the gameplay and the interaction and player feedback, rather than can you make an awesome model or can you texture this object you found on the internet. We don't want to be wasting our time with stuff like that. We really want to make sure our gameplay and our design is very, very well thought out and implemented. So yeah, this is really what we're going to be working with. Also down here, I'll show you, we got a little turret that will shoot at the player and take damage. So we've got a lot of different stuff in here. You can feel free to play around with this and mess around. That's what the first assignment's all about. And then you're just going to be compiling an exe and submitting that to the server, which is very well explained in the actual assignment itself. And then to submit your work, so inside of your section folder, you see the working folder. That's where your Unity project will go, and then you have your compiled folder. This is where you're going to be submitting your actual work. So week 1, a lot of stuff to do for the first week, but it will definitely start to taper off, and you're going to start to focus in on your final product at the very end. So I think I have an example here in the flowchart. Yep. No, I don't. I lied. But yeah, so when you want to, say for example, submit your playground, you will come into the playground folder, create a folder that's your name underscore playground. It's all very well laid out in the actual assignment, and then you'll be submitting your work to these actual folders. So really make sure that you're paying attention to what you're doing and you're submitting this in the right place. That's another part of this class, and just understanding version control is making sure you're submitting your milestones on time, right? Because if you don't submit your milestones out on the industry, your company may not get paid. So until that's delivered, or if it's late, there may be a penalty. So it's really, really important that you take this stuff seriously and you submit your work to the right place and on time. So everyone clear about how to submit their work and where it's going to be located? Because I'm only going to be looking for stuff in the compiled folder. I'm not going to be going into the working folder and trying to find your submissions. Is that clear? Cool. And it'll definitely start to make more sense as we go through and as you start to submit your first few assignments. But that's really the gist of it. Dax, do you have anything you wanted to mention about the process of getting set up with the class?
No, I think we covered everything.
Cool.
Has everybody read the Creative Vision yet?
Probably not.
You didn't read it first thing at midnight?
You didn't read it at midnight?
I read a few things first thing at midnight last night.
Awesome.
Not the creative vision.
Awesome. Yeah, definitely take a look at that. It'll really put everything into perspective, and definitely just mess around with this little example we have here. Oh yeah, I wanted to talk about the README. In the content folder, there's a PDF that will just go over. Bless you. It'll go over all the controls inside of the template, as well as everything that we have available to you. So just a nice little resource to have and utilize. All right, so any questions at all about that? Anything not clear right now?
So we're just waiting to see what happens with the person
Yeah, the assets themselves are pretty large. It's about 3.5, 4 gigs of assets. So you may just have a tough time doing that on campus in general. You may have to do that, either at McDonald's where the Wi-Fi is slightly better, or at your place. But yeah, we should definitely make sure we get all that situated and figured out today, so you guys can move forward with everything. Yeah, so should we move on to the creative portion of the lecture?
Right on time.
Perfect. All right, so one of the assignments you may notice, let's see, I'm just opening, there we go. So here, one of the assignments you may notice was, so the creative vision discussion, and then we also have the John Cleese discussion. We're actually going to go ahead and watch this video now, so we get a nice little relaxing morning for first Monday back to class. And then here I also have this Perforce Unity discussion forum. This is just meant for you guys in case you run into any issues and you're not really sure what you're doing wrong. Feel free to work with each other, ask each other questions. So you can definitely come to this forum here and post any problems you're having. And if you're running into any other issues as well, feel free to go to that. And then also, myself, I'll definitely be available for you. Okay, so let's just open this up. Turn the lights down. Does anyone want to take a break or go to the bathroom or anything? No? Watch this again if you have. Ready to go now.
There you go.
So one of the So one of the tools that we have provided for you guys inside of our project here is we've got these level blocking meshes. So you'll notice everything in my scene has this grid pattern on it, right? So these level blocking meshes that you'll have available to you inside of the project template, these give you a slight advantage. Well, I say slight, but it's a major advantage compared to using the Unity primitives, which you may already be familiar with. So if I create a cube out of the level blocking meshes here, you notice that it appears just like it would with a regular. So let me just go ahead and make a primitive cube object so you can see the difference here. Alright, so this one comes in with a material on it, and that's just part of the script we have. But you'll notice on this cube here, we have this small little pink widget up in the corner, right? And now what this gives us the ability to do is I can select that widget just by clicking on it, and now I can drag this. And now I'm scaling this object, but I'm doing so in a different manner from a different point. And what you'll notice here is that this material is starting to tile. It's not stretching. It's not being distorted. So we're able to create pieces of geometry in Unity very quickly that aren't going to look ugly when you start to texture them, right? So let me go ahead and apply this same, not mesh.
Here, turn that. There's sunlight
Okay.
washing out the screen to the back.
So I just go ahead and apply the same material to this object here. And now I want to scale it the same way. You see it start to stretch and be distorted, right? So that's not what we want. So this just gives us that power to be able to make assets and block out a level how we'd like to, and still achieve that quality of texture that we're going for. Because we're not artists here. We don't have time to fully model everything. It's really awesome that you guys had that exposure to Maya and you have that understanding of it. And if you want to make a few modifications to an asset and bring it in here, definitely more power to you. But these level blocking meshes can really go far, and you can notice this scene here is nothing but level blocking meshes. So really good powerful tool that we have available. So another thing you don't really get out of the Unity primitives is the wedge piece. It's just a short little ramp like that, so you can use that to make ramps for the player to actually walk up. You can do little things like this and create different slopes like that. Also, our archway we have in here. A new addition for this is so you'll notice that when you first create it, it has sharp corners like that, or squared corners. Over here in the inspector, there's a small little checkbox for squared. So I can go ahead and hit that, and it's going to become round. The squared one's really great if you wanted to do things like if you want to have a building or a doorway. You can have a wall on each side of this, and that way you don't have the weird holes where you have two cubes, and then you have your arch that would look like this, and you'd have that little gap in between. So having that square just allows you to snap everything together and make everything look much cleaner. So that being said, I said the word snap. Everyone familiar with the snapping tool in Unity? No?
It's been a minute.
All right, perfect. Let's go over that. So inside of your edit menu, so you go edit, snap settings. All right, so this allows you to snap objects to the grid. So this object here, say I move it over, and now it's now I have a position of say 64.2 and 34 or 3.4 in the Y, right? It's not on my grid in units of 1 anymore. So if I have this object selected and I hit snap all axes, it's going to bring it back to that closest whole number. So you see it got moved back to 64 in the X and 3 in the Y. So when you're moving objects, and here you have the ability to change this. So this is in terms of 1 unit. Scale, you can also adjust this when you scale, and then also rotate. So this would be in terms of degrees. So when I move my object, if I hold Control down and move it, you see it's gonna be snapping based on whatever my setting is set to. So that's holding down Control. Very, very, very helpful. Very, very amateur thing. I've seen a lot of designers and world builders, definitely even artists as well. When I was going through the program, they just don't pay attention to little details like that, and then your geometry is either like running through each other or it's not lining up properly. It looks very unprofessional and unclean. So it's just a good habit to get into, and then you start to think about everything in terms of units, right? You can really think of everything in terms of distance from each other, and you can plan your setups out. And if you want the player to move this object to, slide it over this way, you want it to be, 5 units, and then maybe that's too long, so you cut it down to 4. And so you just get a lot more granularity and much more clear design when you're working in these whole numbers. Myself, actually, I'm just a little side note is I'm currently working on a plan to remodel my kitchen, and I'm doing my whole block out inside of Maya, and so everything is perfectly to scale, and I'm using those whole numbers and using real measurements. So using actual numbers, it's just much easier and cleaner to utilize rather than trying to mess around with decimal places. So that's really the level blocking meshes in a nutshell. I mean, it's pretty self-explanatory. Each one has some attributes to it. So like in the arch as well too, you have the ability to let me zoom in on this. So you see all your attributes down here, and pretty much they're all straightforward. So like your sections. So right now it's 6, but if I wanted to increase it to be a bit smoother, you can increase it further. If you wanted to make it only like 2 or 3, you have a lot of options here. Changing the radius. Oh, too small. So this like these railings over here. So you can see it's like a short little archway, and then you could go even further and increase the sections. So you can see like these railings over here were made from archways. So it's just a lot of just trying to start to understand what you can do with these tools, as well as just start to mess around with them. So once we guys get you set up with Perforce in lab today, and then we get you running around in your project, you can mess around with the character controller, start to just play around with the level blocking meshes, get comfortable with them, see what's possible, because it's a very powerful tool that going forward throughout your rest of your career at Full Sail, you're going to have access to these to any other project that you'd like. So yeah, I mean, they're all pretty self-explanatory. This refresh mesh is nice. Sometimes if you, so like say, let me see if I can do a little example. So this archway that I just made, if for whatever reason this mesh here gets removed, so say that's gone, now there's no mesh in place there. Now I'm pretty sure if I come back to here and go refresh mesh, it's going to populate that in with a mesh for me. So it's just a nice tool to utilize in case anything ever breaks or something's going wrong. Maybe you're trying to transfer one scene from one project into another project. You just want to select your meshes and hit refresh, and it's just going to repopulate them. Yeah, and then we also have a small little PDF for you, or a Google Doc for you that's a part of the playground assignment that just walks through pretty much everything I just went over and talks about each object that you can create. But pretty simple, but very, very powerful, and definitely a step up from the primitives. One other thing you may want to pay attention to, and this will come further into play when you start messing with rigid bodies, and this is a recent discovery of ours, was that when you create a level blocking mesh, how the script is created, it's creating the pivot for this object at the corner of the mesh itself, and that's actually really helpful because now so if I have this object in the center, right? So my pivot's in the center, and I want to rotate, like I want to move this into place, and then I want to rotate it. Like say I have it lined up like that. Make sure I get it right spot. Okay, I have it right up against this block here. But now I want to rotate it, to rotate it 90 degrees. But now I'd have to, rotate it and then move it into place, right? That's no good. But because this pivot is very, very helpful, now I'm able to just rotate right around from that pivot spot. So it just is very convenient, and something that you really appreciate when you're working in Maya, being able to move the pivots of objects to where you want them. But just understand that you're able to move objects from a corner, but then that will affect the physics of the object, right? Because now that is where the center of that object is. So it's going to behave slightly different with the gravitonal. So let me go ahead and show you what I mean by that. So I come over to my object here. Got to add a rigid body, that would help. Added a phys tag, but not a rigid body. Alright, so now you see when I'm just holding it still like this, you see how the corner of that object is in the center of my sphere? That's because that's where the pivot is. So it's just something to keep in mind when you're setting up, when you're thinking about and working on trying to mess around with things with the rigid bodies, getting it to work with the gravinol. Just be conscious of the level blocking meshes are coming from a corner, and that's why they're going to behave slightly differently. So for anything like that, you would probably want to use a primitive, or set it up in a way where your pivot isn't all wonky like this. But what? Yeah, just any custom mesh. Yeah. So this is the one small little hiccup I've noticed with that. Also, just how the tool is designed. You're able to just duplicate objects like you normally would in Unity, but just how the tool is built, we're not able to mass duplicate. Let me make sure. I think I lied. It may have that may have been updated. Awesome. So never mind that. Looks like that's been improved. Yeah, we're always we have a few different instructors that have been always for the last few months been continuing to work on this project template. So there may come a time during the month where this is game development and game design where we're working on stuff and it doesn't always come out exactly how I want the first time, right? Maybe something's broken on our end. We need to fix something. So there may be times throughout the month where I'll send out an announcement. I'll say to you guys, hey, we made a change to the level blocking tools. It's in the project template. Go get it, right? So all you guys would have to do is come to your template, get the latest revision, and now all you really need to do to work it back into your project is grab whatever asset or folder that has changed and copy it into your own project. Does that make sense? Because we're starting with a base of our project template. So say, for example, I make a change to, so inside this ask core, here's the level blocking tools and all of its goodies. So say I make a change to one of these scripts, you can just go ahead and get the latest of this folder and just paste it in your project and you'll be back up to date. So I may have some announcements. It doesn't happen all the time, but sometimes things just break and Unity gets a new version and we need to change some part of our script. So just a heads up for that, but everything should be working smoothly as of right now. So before I send you guys off to grab some lunch, you guys have any questions at all? I know that we got to go over the creative vision a little bit when we get back from labs, so you have a much better understanding of what it is we're going to be working on this next month. And then definitely I'm going to make sure I figure out what's going on with the Perforce server and making sure that everyone's able to access it, whether you're on campus or off campus. No questions right now? All right. I'm just going to go ahead and take attendance again. And I'm going to be available during these hours between our lecture and lab. I was most likely today just going to grab some lunch, but then I'm going to be up in the office if you guys need anything or have any questions. So I just wanted to let you know that I'll be available for you between 11 and 1 as my office hours. And then I was planning on doing a few other things during this time in the month. But for today, we can just grab some lunch, and I can get situated with Perforce and everything, and then go from there. Sound good? And if you didn't know already, do you guys know where the game design building is, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right behind Taco Bell. Cool. Yeah, so I'm up there, so you can just go up there. We're both up in that building, so we'll be there for you. And I don't know if you guys want to leave anything in here. I'm sure you guys know
Just
your.
other people getting ready to go.
Yeah, you can leave your stuff in here if you'd like, but you can take it with you. Just leave it at your own accord.